The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, retired Admiral Mike Mullen, for his first televised interview since speaking out on this controversy. Admiral, a number of top retired military leaders like yourself had declined to speak out on the commander-in-chief for the past 3+ years. That ended this week with General Mattis, you, others. Why now, sir?
Well, as I said in the piece that I wrote, Chris, I think we've reached an inflection point in the country, and specifically to address the issue of racism, which was obvious, the substantial protests that were out there, mostly peaceful, was a very strong message. And then the use of our the potential use of our military to fight our own people, to deploy in the streets, and to use a phrase that the Secretary of Defense used, to dominate in the battle space. We have a military to fight our enemies, not our own people. And our military should never be called to fight our own people as enemies of the state. And that, quite frankly, for me, really tipped it over.
Let's review the events of last Monday afternoon, which is the event that I think sparked you to finally write your piece and to break your silence. Shortly after 6 p.m., local and federal officers used force to move protesters back from Lafayette Park. President Trump talked to reporters in the Rose Garden.
I am your president of law and order, and an ally of all peaceful protesters. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
Then the President and Defense Secretary Esper and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, walked from the White House across the park and over to St. John's Church. Why specifically was that so objectionable? And speak to what you just heard Secretary Wolf say, which is we didn't want to take options off the table. We didn't end up using active duty military, but we didn't know where we were going to be in terms of violence in the streets.
Well, specifically, Chris, the active duty troops that were brought to D.C. were part of the 82nd Airborne, which is a ready brigade. They're deployable on very short notice. So physically, did they really need to be in D.C. Is one question. And when you move them that close, they are very much at the ready. And in my own life, when I was about to graduate from the Naval Academy in 1968, the reflection back to Washington, D.C. in the spring of '68, when Martin Luther King had been killed. Bobby Kennedy was killed the night before, or the day I graduated from Annapolis. And I see this reemerging, and from a war, quite frankly, where the United States military lost the respect and the trust of the American people. We've regained that. And in very short order, should we get into conflict in our own streets, there's a very significant chance we could lose that trust that it's taken us 50+ years to restore. That's what's in play right now. And when you really don't need that kind of force, the American military to turn on the American people, particularly when they are executing their right to protest, that is emblazoned in the Constitution of the United States.
As I noted with Secretary Wolf just now, Defense Secretary Mark Esper broke with the President on Wednesday about the idea of calling in active duty military. But here is what he said on the conference call with governors on Monday. Take a listen.
I think the evidence was clear on Saturday night and Sunday night. And so at my urging, I agree, we need to dominate the battle space.
Do you think that Secretary Esper and the man who now has your former job, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, do you think they should step down from their positions?
Stepping down from a position like that is really a personal decision. I don't know Secretary Esper I know Mark Milley pretty well. I know Mark is working hard to represent the United States military in every single way. I know he has pushed back on the president with some of the federalization, if you will, of this mission. And I think he will work hard to do his duty every single day. I think he's in a uniquely difficult position. That job's tough no matter when you're there, but he's in a uniquely difficult position because of this president.
I have a couple of questions I want to squeeze in, and we got less than 3 minutes. The U.S. military, I think you would agree, I think you're very proud of, is one of the great institutions in this country in terms of the way that it has handled the issue of race over the last more than half century. Are there lessons from the military and how they handle race that you think are applicable to our nation's neighborhoods?
Well, I think what's in question right now, back to sort of the tipping point, is this is a moment, I think, of moral clarity and support of our values, which certainly involves the equality for all, equal justice under the law. And we've been actually very, very good at making an awful lot of progress with respect to that. That said, I've heard from minority members of the military right now who are in despair and in anguish, and appreciated my comments because it gives them some hope that leadership may be more courageous. So there is a lot to learn. And yet we're not perfect in the military. Probably the single biggest thing we lack are black leaders at the 4-star level. And we should do much more about that.
Right.
And that's on the current military leadership.
I want to pick up on a comment you made just before that when you said that General Milley's in a particularly difficult position given this president. In your essay for The Atlantic, you had some very tough things to say about President Trump. I want to put them up on the screen. He laid bare his disdain for the rights of peaceful protest. I am less confident in the soundness of the orders they will be given by this commander-in-chief. This is not the time for stunts. This is the time for leadership. There was talk, Admiral Mullen, as you well know, back in 2016 that you might run on a ticket with Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump. There was talk that you might run on a ticket with Howard Schultz against Donald Trump in 2020. Some might call you, perhaps today the president will call you, a Trump hater. How do you plead, sir?
My goal in both expressing myself recently and I was not involved in any of those discussions in 2016 as you just described. My goal is to support what we need for the country. This is a moment, as I said, of moral clarity. I think is very clear in the future whether we want to unify the country in a political division, in the political division that has existed now for years, or whether we want to continue to divide the country. That is a choice that the American people have in front of them in the very near future.
Admiral Mullen, thank you. Thanks for your time, sir. Always good to talk with you.